I sat in that hearing room and watched a Secretary of Defense treat accountability like a suggestion he could simply decline, and I could not look away. He fired America's most decorated general and refused to explain why. 60% of the officers he purged next were black or female, and he called it merit. He preached Christian nationalism from the Pentagon podium, then swore that he tolerates every faith. Then he claimed Iran's missiles were destroyed, its regime toppled, its nuclear threat erased for good. The unclassified numbers tell a very different story, and I am about to read them to you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Secretary, you recently fired the Army Chief of Staff, General Randy George, who's one of the most distinguished and decorated officers of his generation. General George's nomination came before us. We reviewed it thoroughly, and we concurred. Why did you fire General George?
Well, as I did then, and I'll say now, we thank General George for his service. And out of respect to him and other officers, we never talk about the nature of why certain officers are asked to step down. But we all serve at the pleasure of the President. And ultimately, my view in coming into this department, as I stated in my confirmation hearing, was to change the culture of the department. And it's ultimately challenging to change the department, the culture of a department with the same people who are a part of or in that department. So I have made many changes with general officers. We will continue to make changes as necessary with general officers, and they will be in keeping with the trajectory of where we would like to take the department, but it doesn't take away from the service of those. And I think you will note that every officer that's been asked to leave has been treated with respect.
Interesting. Of the 24 officers that you have fired for reasons unrelated to performance, since you have not indicated any cause, 60% are black or females. Now, did the President direct you to single out female and black officers to be dismissed?
Senator, of course not. And as we've emphasized at this department from the beginning, the only metric is merit. Members on this committee and the previous leadership of this department were focused on social engineering, race and gender in ways that we think were unhealthy for the department, focusing on those things, making decisions based on those things.
Okay.
In President Trump's War Department, we make decisions based on only one thing, merit. And that's how we've made decisions going forward. That's how we've made them, and that's how we'll make them going forward.
Well, let me go back to General George. What did he fail in terms of his lack of merit to continue serving?
As I said, I don't talk about the nature of dismissal out of respect
for
these officers. But ultimately, we want to take the department in a particular direction, certain services in a particular direction, and we want leadership that's running as fast in that direction as possible. And in some cases, we make changes accordingly, but do so out of respect to those officers.
Well, I think that direction from your behavior is an intense interest in Christianity, in nationalism, and in not recognizing the talents of women and non-white gentlemen, and that's the wrong direction.
I don't know what you're insinuating, Senator, but I am not ashamed of my faith in Jesus Christ.
Well, you shouldn't be ashamed.
And if you want to shame me for it, go ahead.
I'm not shaming you, but are you critical of other faiths?
I am a believer. I'm quite open in that, and our department allows for a multitude of faiths. So I don't know what you're suggesting. I've heard the likes of things that people like you suggest to try to smear my character, and I won't give into it.
No.
People like you?
I'm sorry, Mr. Secretary, but broadcasting before the national religious broadcasters stressing the need for more Christianity in the military forces doesn't seem like a neutral position in which you tolerate and accept all religions. Let me move on. The strategic aspects of this operation in Iran. The President declared that we're going to destroy their missiles and raise their missile industry to the ground. And after more than 13,000 strikes, unclassified assessments conclude that Iran retains more than 40% of its drone arsenal and 60% of its ballistic missile launches compared with pre-war levels. That's one of his objectives. The Second objective was regime change. To the great proud people of Iran, I say tonight that the hour of your freedom is at hand, and we will take over your government. Well, when we finish, we'll take over government. That has not succeeded. And then one of his other things is at the onset of the war, the president said, we will ensure that Iran does not obtain a nuclear weapon. Military operations in Iran have not achieved that goal yet. And it also seems to indicate that his pronouncements about Operation Midnight Hammer obliterating the nuclear policy and structure of the Iranians was false. So you have not achieved any of the objectives yet that has the president mentioned.
Well, in this setting, I won't talk about the nature of metrics, which are classified, as you know, Senator. But I can say that looking at the objectives we set out to achieve from the beginning, some of which you laid out, our military objectives have been stunningly effective. Take, for example, their defense industrial base. They're completely incapable at scale at any level of reconstituting the capabilities you referred to, which is a devastating result for any country, especially one whose ambitions are as wide as Iran's. So we've put the president in a very strong position to ensure Iran never gets a nuclear weapon. That's the takeaway that's been underneath every single aspect of this. For 47 years, Iran's trying to blackmail its way to a nuclear weapon. They were closer than ever before because of bad deals under previous administration. President Trump was willing to do something about it and not allow their conventional missile shield. That's the North Korea strategy. That's, to be clear, what Iran was pursuing. Hiding their nuclear ambitions, revealing them over time, and then building a conventional shield of missiles so powerful that no country would challenge them for fear of what would happen if they unleashed that arsenal. Weakened after the 12-day war and Midnight Hammer, which did obliterate their sites, President Trump saw an opportunity because their ambitions continued to ensure that umbrella of nuclear blackmail did not allow them to get to a nuclear weapon. And the world is safer because of his bold and historic choice.
Mr. Secretary, I think that's rhetorical but not factual. Thank you.
I watched Senator Reid question Secretary Hegseth, and by the end I was not looking at a hearing anymore. I was looking at a preview of what happens when an institution stops answering to facts. It opened with a firing. General Randy George, one of the most decorated officers of his generation, was removed, and the secretary would not say why. We never talk about the nature of why certain officers are asked to step down, he said. And that sentence sounds reasonable right up until you ask who it is actually protecting. Here is the legal backdrop you need. Under Article 2, general officers serve at the pleasure of the president, and that power is real. But for decades it has been fenced in by an unwritten norm, reinforced by the Inspector General Act of 1978, that senior leadership gets removed for performance, not for politics. When a secretary cannot name a cause, he is telling you the cause would not survive daylight. Then came a number that should stop anyone: 24 general officers removed for reasons the secretary refuses to define, 60% of them black or female, not 60 people, 60%. He called it merit. Merit is a word that sounds official right up until you ask for the paperwork behind it, and there was none. Try that defense in a job interview and see how far it gets you. If the standard were truly performance, the Pentagon could release performance records tomorrow. Instead, it released a slogan. Here's the tell. An institution swaps a verifiable standard for an unverifiable one at the exact moment a demographic pattern appears, and I am not going to call that a coincidence. The officer corps is supposed to be insulated from exactly this kind of pressure, insulated so promotion tracks competence, not conformity. Once that insulation cracks, every officer watching learns the same lesson. Survival depends on visible loyalty, and that lesson spreads through every promotion board from here forward. Then the hearing moved into religion, and this is the part most people will scroll past without noticing. Senator Reid raised the secretary's public appearances promoting Christianity within the armed forces. The secretary answered that he is not ashamed of his faith. Nobody asked him to be ashamed. The question was about neutrality, not belief. And those are not the same thing no matter how many times you conflate them on a podium. DOD instruction. 1300.17 exists precisely to guarantee that every faith gets equal footing in the ranks. When the country's top defense official stands in front of religious broadcasters and calls for more of one faith inside the military, he is not sharing a private conviction, he is signaling which identity gets rewarded. That signal never shows up in a policy memo. It shows up later, quietly, in who feels safe speaking up. Ask any chaplain from a minority faith how fast they noticed. Then the hearing turned to Iran, and here is where rhetoric finally met its receipts. The president promised three things: the destruction of Iran's missile capability, a change of government in Tehran, and a guarantee that Iran would never get a nuclear weapon. I want you to sit with the actual numbers Senator Reid cited. Unclassified assessments showing Iran retaining more than 40% of its drone arsenal and 60% of its ballistic missile launchers. The promised regime change never happened. The government in Tehran is still standing, and the nuclear claim remains something the secretary says he can only discuss in classified terms, which is a polite way of saying the public case is not there yet. Instead of addressing any of that, he called the operation stunningly effective and pivoted to Iran's damaged industrial base, a real result, but not the result that was promised on live television. Here is the concept worth remembering long after this hearing ends. Joint Publication 2-01 defines what a real battle damage assessment looks like: a sober, evidence-based accounting verified through intelligence, not applause. A victory speech is written for an audience, and audiences respond to certainty, not nuance. That is not a technicality tucked into a doctrine manual nobody reads. It is the entire difference between a fact and a press release, and when an official keeps choosing the speech over the assessment, Congress loses the one power it has in matters of war: independent verification. Senator Reid's closing line said it best: what the secretary offered was rhetorical, not factual. Now watch what happens when I put these three threads side by side. A personnel purge, a religious controversy, and a war claims dispute look like three different stories. They are the same story told three times. First, evidence was replaced by an unverifiable claim of merit. Second, neutrality was replaced by preference. Third, verified assessment was replaced by declared victory. Every one of those swaps moves power the same direction, away from institutions that check facts, and toward one office that simply declares them. That is institutional erosion, and it rarely announces itself. It just quietly replaces the referee with a spokesperson. Here is why this reaches you even if you have never worn a uniform. Purge career officers for unexplained reasons, and the military loses institutional memory, the hard-won judgment that takes decades to build. Erode neutrality in the ranks and service members start calculating whether honesty is worth the risk. And silence in the ranks is how bad decisions go unchallenged until they become catastrophes. Let unverified war claims stand, and taxpayers fund outcomes they will never fully know, while future wars get planned on applause lines instead of facts. An institution that cannot explain a firing, cannot promise neutrality, and cannot separate a victory speech from a verified outcome has stopped being accountable to anyone outside itself. None of this requires speculation. The transcript and the unclassified numbers are sitting in the public record for anyone to check. So what should actually happen here? Congress needs binding disclosure requirements for senior officer removals, so silence stops being an acceptable final answer. Independent Inspector General reviews should follow any removal pattern that skews this heavily by race or gender, because patterns deserve investigation, not slogans. Battle damage assessments tied to major military claims should be independently verifiable, on a security delay if necessary, but verifiable. And you need to build one simple habit: separating a confident tone from a confirmed fact, because confidence is free, facts are earned, and this secretary has been spending confidence like it costs nothing. What Senator Reid did in that room was not theater, it was accountability working exactly as designed, one direct question at a time. I will leave you with this: institutions do not protect themselves. They survive because people keep asking the question this senator asked today: why? And refuse to accept silence as the answer.